Namaskar and good morning, everyone present with us for today's national webinar organized by the Department of Anthropology, Guru Saran College, Silchar, Assam. A warm welcome to all of you. Now, I would like to request Dr. Keshav Luitel Sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Sanskrit, Guru Saran College, to chant Vedic Mangala Charan to start the program. Thank you.
नमस्कार. हरिः ओम. सन्नो मित्रः शम्बरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा सन्नो इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः सन्नो विष्णुरुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मावतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्. ओम शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Start.
Thank you, sir. Respected Principal of Guru Saran College, Dr. Vibhasdev sir, respected Vice Principal, Dr. Mihir Nath sir, Honorable IQSC Coordinator, Dr. Rajashree Pal Madam, esteemed resource persons of today's webinar, participants from different parts of our country, esteemed colleagues and faculties of Guru Saran College, Silchar, Assam. I, Dr. Juri Bora, convener and moderator of today's program, extend you all a warm welcome to the national webinar organized by the Department of Anthropology, Guru Saran College, Assam. The theme of this webinar is Urgent Research in Anthropology with special reference to Northeast India. It is a fact that there is an urgent need for all-inclusive, socially relevant, problem-oriented, and methodical anthropological studies of this region. The problem of anthropological research in Northeast India is not at the same level as other regions of our country because of its geopolitical significance. Thorough scrutiny of the processes of transformation of traditional society or community as revealed in social structure, economy, polity, and work over by the forces of globalization. The critical issues like new concrete mapping of social locations in the context of the interstate border issues, insurgency and ethnicity, making sense of anthropological genetics or biogenetic patterns of behavior, and justifying the pursuance of anthropological archaeology in the changing scenario is expected to be receiving greater attention from anthropologists and anthropologically oriented researchers in the coming years. Therefore, we seek to reflect on the multidisciplinary of the discipline in the Northeast Indian context through the framework of intellectual kinship. Today, in this webinar, we have with us Professor Sorit Kumar Choudhury Sir, Head Department of Anthropology, Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh, Professor M. Monibabu Singh Sir, Head Department of Anthropology, Manipur University, Manipur, and Professor Gulrukh Madam, Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University, Assam. I must say, in all due humility, that it is indeed my great pleasure and privilege to be here to welcome you all the eminent academicians. We are happy that despite the very busy academic schedule, you gave kind response to our invitation. We feel encouraged by your gracious presence. I also warmly thank all the participants who joined the webinar from different parts of our country. I once again welcome you all. Thank you. Now, I would like to request our Vice Principal Sir, Dr. Mihir Nath, on behalf of our Principal Sir, to inaugurate the event. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. At the very outset, I I express my gratitude to all the speakers present here. I uh, I express my great sense of gratitude for their kind consent to uh, to deliver valuable speech here in this webinar. So, at the very outset, respected uh, Professor Shuri Chaudhuri, Department of Anthropology, Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh, respected Professor M. Manibabu Singh, Professor and Head, Department of Anthropology, Manipur University, respected Professor Gulrukh Begum, Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University, respected IQAC Coordinator, respected HOD, Juri Bora, respected all colleagues, and all the participants present in this webinar. Anthropology, it is a multidisciplinary subject that deals with different aspects of human being, its past, present. It deals with different aspects of human biology, its social and cultural behavior, its economic aspects, political aspects, etc. The northeast region of India is a hotspot of different ethnic groups and their cultures. This gives immense scope of anthropological study and research related to people of this region. Keeping this as an objective, the Department of Anthropology, Gurucharan College, Silchar, started its journey in the year 1965 to impart anthropological study to the students of Northeast region in general and Borak Valley in particular. It is the only department under Assam University which caters the need of the students who wants to take anthropology as their career. Since its inception, the department is organizing different extracurricular activities such as seminar, symposium, etc., to encourage the students in this field. The faculties of the department managed to develop an anthropological museum in their department. Today's webinar, titled Urgent Research in Anthropology, with special reference to Northeast India, is a step further in this direction. For this endeavor, I must appreciate this endeavor of Dr. Juri Bora, HOD, Department of Anthropology. I express my heartfelt thanks to Professor Shuri Chaudhary, Professor M. Manibabu Singh, and Professor Gulrukh Begum for their kind consent to deliver a speech in this webinar. I hope all the participants present in this webinar will certainly be benefited listening their valuable speeches. I wish the program a grand success. With these words, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable speech. We extend heartfelt gratitude to you. Now it's time to start our technical sessions. Before starting the technical session, I would like to inform you that there will be a deliberation by the esteemed invitees for 30 to 45 minutes of duration. It's followed by an interaction session with the participants, if any. The participants are requested to write to us in the chat box if there is any query, and we shall forward it to the distinguished delegates. Our first speaker is Professor Sorit Kumar Chaudhary sir. The topic of his presentation is Anthropological Research in Arunachal Pradesh, Reflections on some Emerging Areas and Issues. Now, I would like to introduce Professor Sorit Kumar Chaudhary sir in front of the gallery. Professor Sorit Kumar Chaudhary, formerly Director, IGRMS Bhopal from 2014 to 2020 and at present HOD, Department of Anthropology, Rajiv Gandhi University, did his master's degree in anthropology from Calcutta University and PhD from Arunachal University, now Rajiv Gandhi University. Before he joined Arunachal University as a lecturer in 1995, he had worked in the Anthropological Survey of India for almost 7 years. In 1993, he received Young Scientist Award from the Indian Science Congress Association during the 8th session held in Goa. During 2003 to 5, Professor Chaudhary was in the School of Oriental and African Studies SOAS UK as postdoctoral fellow and worked on a collaborative project with SOAS, British Museum, CCRD and Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh. He is a member of think tank instituted by the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Professor Chaudhary carried out many pieces of research among the tribes of Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, and West Bengal. He has authored around 20 books, largely focusing on the tribal issues of Northeast India, primitive tribal groups of India, and research methodology, and contributed more than 100 research articles in national and foreign journals and also in various seminar proceedings. Sir, may I now request you to proceed with your presentation?
So good morning to all of you. I hope I am audible. Hello.
Sir, you are
Can you
audible.
listen to me?
Yes, sir, you are audible and visible too.
Okay. Um, so good morning to all of you. Esteemed Vice Principal Mrinal Ranjan Nath, the head of the department, Judy Boda, and my two distinguished colleagues from the University of Manipur as well as Guwahati University, Professor Moni Babu Singh and Professor Gulrik Begum, distinguished participants, and my dear friends. Let me first congratulate the Department of Anthropology, Gurucharan College, Silchar, Assam, for taking such an important initiative, focusing on some of the urgent research in the context of India's Northeast. And I'm happy to see that, this is covering largely three broad areas of anthropology, what we call the social and cultural anthropology, physical or biological anthropology, and the prehistory. Let me just put it in a briefly and broadly that I'll not take more than half an hour. I'll be preferring if there is some kind of an interactions where I can try to have ventilation of my ideas in relation to what we are supposed to discuss today. Let me also add that I didn't came out with any kind of an structured paper which I can read, but on the basis of my association with this region for almost 30 years, out of which 25 years in Arunachal, I'll try to share my ideas, my involvement in relation to the anthropological research. But let me also add that by adding 30 or 25 these figures, I don't intend to reflect any kind of an authority over this region or the state or even its communities, because so far the issues are concerned, it is so complex and so much of multi-layered realities remain involved that perhaps one cannot develop any sense of authority, which, of course, in contemporary context, the whole social science challenge this notion of authority over any community or a region by any individuals, whether anthropologist or any other social scientist we can think of. What I thought of to tell in relation to what can be the larger areas of focus in relation to the state where I am living for 25 years in terms of research and teaching. And what I thought before going into the talking about the issues or the areas which needs certainly some kind of perhaps additional focus, let me put it the brief context of the text, the state where I am living, the Arunachal, so that that background helps us in understanding what need to be done but I don't um, focus in much the notion of what we call the urgent research, because these are some kind of an relative term. What appears to be urgent from me, that may not be urgent in the context of some other researcher or in the context of the other states of this region. As all of us, being a student of anthropology, being part of this domain, I think whether student, researcher, or faculties, or anybody who is involved in understanding the issues of Northeast had some kind of passion. Specifically, addressing the students or the other persons who are involved in anthropological domain. We are aware about the kind of colonial research in this region. Specifically, in the context of Arunachal, I can tell that I'm not going to much concentrate on these colonial writings, as we know that we have large number of colonial writings in the context of the whole state, and there are researchers, there are senior anthropologists who has looked at the issue of contribution of the colonial writers. Many of them were not trained anthropologists. Many of them were basically administrators. Their writings today we have looked at, and there are fascinating writings came out of that critique of these different kinds of colonial writings. In the larger context of Northeast, we are aware about J.P. Mill's work, Hutton's work. There are many which I don't intend to discuss, keeping within the time frame. In the context of Arunachal, similarly, we have huge number of colonial writings. I'll just add, which Judy was talking about, that we had a 5 years project with SOA, School of Oriental and African Studies, and then the British Museum, one NGO called CCRD from Arunachal, with the full support of the government of Arunachal, where basically we tried to look at the issue of tribal transition in Arunachal. Basic thrust remained that we look at the colonial documents, and we initiated certain kind of contemporary research, and then we tried to understand the nature of transition in this state. Now, this has led to a kind of an bibliographic work which I did in different parts of the state, in the state archive, but largely my research was based in what is called the SOAS archive, School of Oriental African Studies. I'm sure students of anthropology or anthropologists are aware about the importance of this institution in UK, where you can get Heimendorff's all the field IDs. I had a chance to look at the archives of the Pitt Rivers Museum's archive under the University of Oxford, and so on and so forth. I worked for a long time there. And I prepared a kind of an bibliographic stuff which runs about 80 pages, which I didn't publish, of course. But that gave me some ideas about the colonial, even the immediate post-colonial work in the state. And when I look at those documents and look at the state in a very dispassionate way, where I am staying for 25 years, then I can find out that there should not be any kind of a doubt that the kind of change or the kind of transformation this state, Arunachal, the so-called Northeast Frontier Agency, has undergone. And while talking about the new areas of research or the new areas which should be of some greater importance in terms of the new research initiatives, we need to understand this kind of the transition which the people of this state has undergone. I'll just refer to important person who remains very, very dominant, influential in understanding the tribal issues of the state, in understanding the different aspects of the tribes of the state. I'll just refer Heimendorf in a very special way because Heimendorf is a trained anthropologist who worked in colonial and post-colonial situation. So, in a sense, he tried to have a kind of an bridging between what we call the colonial and post-colonial anthropological research in this state. I think most of us are aware about Heimendorf's first book in 1940s, Apatani and Their Neighbor. And then almost 4 decades gap, Heimendorf came back and wrote a second seminal volume called From Cattle to Cash. Now, beyond that, Heimendorf also written many other important publications in the form of book. And as I have the chance of accessing Heimendorf's almost all diaries, almost 50 diaries, which are kept in the School of Oriental African Studies archive, because Heimendorf's family actually, after his death, handed over all these documents to that archive. Um, so, what I can see, the kind of the importance of Heimendorf's initiative in understanding the tribes of the state, and specifically, I must also mention it is the Heimendorf who made Apatanis known across the world. We see some of the books, but there are many other very valuable writings which were published in different newspaper magazines, which are of having equal importance in understanding the contemporary Arunachal event. The second person is definitely very Eluin. I must tell that Eluin's seminal volume, Philosophy for Nefa, though it was written long back, around 59, which is reprinted so many times. Even today, Directorate of Research Arunachal is bringing, reprinting that volume. And I think this is a very, very significant contribution from an anthropologist in multiple sense. Remember, this is the book which Eluin has written for the administrator who came to administer the then NEFA, Northeast Frontier Agency, from different other parts of the country. But the situation has changed dramatically with the achievement of the statehood, which came to Arunachal. And today, for example, if you look at the statecraft is run by the people of the state. People of the state means I am talking about the tribal people who constitute the state. This is an essentially tribal state, a bordering, very important bordering state of our country. So this the achievement of statehood has its own implication in the life of the tribes of the state, because today, whether it is the question of the formulation of different policies or even the implementation of different policies, it is largely the people of the state who remain responsible, and that has led to a kind of an I'll say definitely a kind of a positive change or transformation in this in this bordering state. I remember Professor Bhagavati, A.C. Bhagavati Annadacharan, late Professor Annadacharan Bhagavati, who remained almost, who brought me into the system of this university, and later on who became my guru. He used to tell me that perhaps in no other parts of the world, within such a time span, short time span, the kind of change Arunachal has experienced is visible at all. So that's the kind of Professor Bhagavati's perception, which I also largely supplement. Now, Eluin has, as I told, this book also need to be read very critically even today. And this is the book which has laid the foundation of our present post-colonial tribal policy. I'm not going into that. You must be aware of its. The foreword is written by none other than our first prime minister, and the whole idea of Panchashil was enshrined within this book only. So this is what I was trying to tell you, that if you look at the post-colonial trajectory of the research, you will find, along with this kind of anthropologist involvement, I must say the institutional initiatives which was taken to understand the tribal population of the state, and how it went on changing its contour and its context. I must say that the Anthropological Survey of India, I'll focus largely on the post-colonial situation, but I must say that I had written a long, with one of my student, it's on the growth of anthropological research in Arunachal, which was published in um, 2015 in the journal run by the INCA. It's a almost 50 pages document. If anybody is interested to look at the colonial research in the Arunachal, they can look at that the paper which is in the public domain. Now back to what I was trying to focus, that in the post-colonial situation, Anthropological Survey of India remained one very influential organization who has initiated anthropological, research among the tribes of Arunachal. And I remember Professor Bhagavati's again comments about how Nirmal N.K. Bose, I believe every anthropologist of our country aware about this name. Professor Bhagavati's personal experience with Nirmal Bose working in that point of time in 60s in the Arunachal. Now then the Anthropological Survey of India has its own branch, what we call the Northeast Regional Center in Shillong, where I also worked for 5 years. They have also started initiative, throughout the Northeast, but uh, some significant important work done in the context of Arunachal. And those are largely, I'll say, ethnographic work based on different tribes rather than issue specific or problem oriented research. And perhaps the most significant thing happened in this, I'm trying to see in a chronological sense, the establishment of the Department of Anthropology in Guwahati University in 1948, um, which has led to a kind of a different kind of research initiative in the context of Arunachal also. The another institute which was very significant, where many important people like Hamindorf, Elwin, many others who has came from different parts of our country, largely the anthropologist, even the linguist, and who contributed very significantly for this state. And that is through the Directorate of Research, which was earlier during NEFA's time, it was located in Shillong and then shifted to Arunachal itself. So if you go to even today the Directorate of Research, you can find out almost for most of the tribes of the state, you will get one kind of an ethnographic work available. And I must say how Elwin played a very significant role for this kind of an ethnographic documentation of the tribes of this state, and which is still continuing in that um, Directorate of Research. And then finally, I'll say the establishment of what is initially called the Department of Tribal Studies in Arunachal, which was in 1995, along with Professor Mibang, Tamo Mibang, our former Vice Chancellor. I also joined as one of the founder member of that department, which now today upgraded it to Arunachal Institute of Tribal Studies. Now, along with the establishment of this Department of Tribal Studies, or the Arunachal Institute of Tribal Studies, a new chapter in terms of anthropological research research initiated. I must put it in the record that in 2001, we have the first department, first anthropology, teaching in anthropology as in the PG courses started. And in 2012, again, we have within this what we call the Arunachal University, later on became the Rajiv Gandhi University, with the demands of the students and UGC's approval established. And I think I am fortunate enough to become the founder head of this department. I feel I'm myself fortunate in a sense of being a student of Calcutta University who is celebrating the 100 years of institutional presence of anthropology in our country. Now, this um, establishment of initially the Department of Tribal Studies and then the Department of Anthropology almost 2 decades, anthropology as a PG level part of the lone universities of this state has made a significant departure in terms of the kind of research which was carried out, anthropological research in this state. That I think is very important to understand while we are talking about the future course of research or looking at what are the domain which needs certain kind of major attention in the context of this state. Um, Let me add that uh, when I look at what I have done in terms of what I call the bibliographic stuff in understanding the research in the Arunachal context, and when I look at my existence and the kind of research, ongoing research within this state, I can feel that there is a need for a kind of an what I call, I have written extensively on this issue also, that Arunachal, those who are having some ideas about the composition of the tribes in the state, their distribution, you may know that if you look at the government websites, you'll find that 26 major tribes, there are so much of large number of, sometimes we call sub-tribes also, or smaller tribes or groups, around 100. But the figure in relation to the tribe or smaller groups fluctuates, which are part of the reality of the state and which relates to the question of what we call the identity formation issues, which need to be understood in a different context altogether. But what I felt, even the colonial and post-colonial context, when I look at whatever research has done within this state, there is a need to look at what is happening to the smaller tribes, the marginalized tribe. And I have written on this issue in a book which Professor Subba has published. It's a handbook published by Orient Black Swan, Anthropology of Northeast India in Handbook. When I'm talking about this research, you will find that most of our research is concentrated or focused on what we call the dominant tribes of this state. By dominant, using dominant, I am trying to focus on their numerical dominance, and also I am trying to look at the issue from their access to the power structure or in terms of their contribution or capabilities in running the statecraft. But there are so many smaller tribes, which I call the lesser known in terms of their weak numerical strength. And incidentally, these tribes are also, many of them are located in a very difficult geographical terrain. Now, I think even in today's context, there is a need of looking at these tribes in a ethnographic context, in the context of different issues which remains dominant in their life. Unfortunately, our so-called the development baskets are not so big, which could have accommodated their needs in the contemporary context, whether in the context of education, health, or any other kind of the so-called indicators of development or the schemes which we can think of. These smaller tribes, unfortunately, we could not cater the needs of their everyday negotiation of life. I must admit that recently, I mean, the AITS, Arunachal Institute of Tribal Studies, has initiated very important work in the field of language studies, because incidentally, most of these tribes, the smaller tribes, their language also came under what we call the endangered language group, whether you look at the UNESCO or even the local list. So AITs has initiated some major work to look at the language issues, which is very, very important. I think an anthropologist should not be taught how language is important in the context of our understanding the culture, understanding the notion of identity. So I'm very happy to see that at least the Arunachal Institute of Tribal Studies initiated such study. From the Department of Anthropology also we are trying to focus some research in this among this group, which we have studied since long, which we are going to continue definitely. The second area, I'm not trying to locate these priority areas in terms of its importance. I'm just putting it down one after another, which necessarily need not be perceived in terms of its relative importance or relative urgency. These are all important areas to my understanding. Now, another important is the area of what we call the intangible cultural heritage, the domain of oral history. I think most of you must be aware of Eluin also have a very significant contribution, the myths of Northeast Frontier area, which Eluin has done, Frontier Agency, which is very seminal volume, which are still taken into consideration. But with the advancement or the growth of the methodological domain, we need to have a different kind of research in understanding the colonial, the oral history of the tribes, which is very, very important to my understanding. Personally, I did a work on the Wangchus, which is, and if you read at the paper, which was published by one of the premier journal in Indian history called Indian Historical Review. It talks about, if you look at the archival sources, if you look at the materials which are in printed form, which are in publication form, and if you go to the population, go to the people and look at their oral historical domain, you can find out what we has called how important is this reconstruction of the oral history of the tribes of Arunachal, which perhaps the colonial history or that kind of the data is failed to represent, or many a time it was misconstrued. So this is an area I'm happy to know that the Department of History also initiated some important work on this domain. I can refer multiple works in the context of Africa, in the context of many other areas where the reconstruction of oral history of the communities, people, I mean, that has created a new kind of an understanding about the community history, which was once upon a time perceived perhaps they are the people without history. Now, in terms of what we call the ethnographic research, there is a significant change in the domain of ethnography as such, in terms of its methodological approach, in terms of what we call its epistemological praxis, the way we think of the way we think of contemporary ethnography need to be written. I'm not going into the debate what is called the postmodern debates in anthropology, which which surfaced with the publication of the book called Writing Culture, Poetics and Politics of Ethnography, or the book like what we call the Predicament of Culture or Anthropology as a Cultural Critic. And today we have even the book called After Writing Culture. We may agree or disagree with the debates of these postmodern debates in anthropology, but there cannot be a denying of the fact that these debates has brought us a kind of new methodological possibilities where ethnography can be much more people centric. It can be a kind of an multivocal in nature or polyphonic in nature instead of a kind of an monologue, which many of our classical or seminal ethnograph talked about. In the context of Arunachal, for example, if you pick up Sachin Ray's aspects of Padumanian culture, pick up the Parul Datta's book on the Wangchus, and many others, we found that how anthropologists try to perceive different kinds of these societies and then they reflected or articulated through their text. So it was basically a kind of a monologue. And today people are talking about the collaborative ethnography. We are talking about the new ethnography, which is very, very important. And let me just put it in a perspective why it is important in the context of Arunachal or Northeast. If you look at, if I just look at my student, our departmental student composition, where more than 80%, perhaps more than 90% students are representing the different tribes of the state, and that itself talks about a new possibility in terms of the methodological enterprise. Let us not forget there was a point of time when anthropology was perceived as a science of others. Now, this subject object shifting of position, location, or what we call even today the multi-sited ethnography, that needs a new kind of an ethnographic experiment in the context of the contemporary studies. And I think it is not only this is true for not only the Arunachal, this is true for any other communities, tribe or non-tribe, across the ethnic boundaries, need to be looked at with all seriousness. Yesterday, I was participating in a program in relation to the largely fixing the training or the research priorities in the context of the youth and for their development in the context of whole Northeast. So there was a consensus in the context of Arunachal that today the idea, the use of different kinds of or abuse of the different kinds of the drugs, different kinds of narcotic substances is very, very rampant in Arunachal. I remember almost 10 years back, I was part of a committee which was evaluated NACO's program in the context of Arunachal, how effectively they are dealing different NACO's scheme which comes from the government of India. And we found out, we since that time that this problem of drug, AIDS are becoming very, very dominant and serious issues in the context of Arunachal. But we don't find much, it was just started, not much of serious intervention in the kind of our research domain to look at these critical issues with which the problem, which the youth of this state, this tribal state are suffering. So that can be a very important area. I know that through the MPhil and PhD program, some elementary works are already initiated, which is definitely an welcome move. Now, in the context of again the health issues, which is very, very dominant, and this is the kind of an area where perhaps we can have a biosocial interventions. I mean, the biological anthropologist and social anthropologist, they can come together and can contribute. This remains, and specifically the women health issues that needs a special kind of attention From the department side, we are trying our best to address this issue, but I'll urge upon the different colleges, the universities of this region, they can also look at this issue beyond their state and looking at the Arunachal, and any kind of an initiative or collaboration needed for our university. We are always you are always welcome to take such kind of an collaborative venture. Gender obviously remains very important in the context of Arunachal, whether it's the question of violence or it's question of the inheritance of property in gender and land rights, whether it is the question of the participation of women in politics, in democratic politics. That's a very important domain which also needs much more focused research. Now, the Arunachal is also a biodiversity hotspot. That's another important dimension of the state. I know that what we call the ecological anthropology or environmental issues which deals with, there are some very significant work is going on. Scholars from National University of Singapore, from UCL, University College of London, our Indian scholars are doing a very good job in terms of addressing the environmental issues of the state, specifically what we call the man-animal relationship in the domain of the issues of dam, which is very sensitive, the making of different kinds of road, which is a part of the initiative within this bordering state, and linked with what we call the indigenous knowledge system. That's a very prime issue, and beyond anthropology, I know there are other departments also who are taking initiative in this domain. But we need much more concerted and focused effort in this very important contemporary domain. Now, one issue which remained at the core domain of anthropology, but unfortunately remained neglected domain, that is the what we call the museum and anthropology. As Judy was talking about, some of you must be aware of, I was part of perhaps one of the premier anthropological museum run by the government of India. It's called IGRMS, or the Museum of Mankind. I have seen, this is the museum which is considered one of the finest museum in Asia, that the whole concept of museum and community, the whole concept has gone tremendous amount of transformation. But unfortunately, we could not explore much. I am talking about most of the anthropology department, including two of our very prime anthropology department, or three, I'll say, the Guwahati University, who are having so fascinating collections of objects, the Dibrugarh University. We have remained is a kind of an largely as a kind of an practical component, or insiders. I mean, I don't know how many visitors comes to Guwahati Museum, Dibrugarh Museum from outside. These are the museums which are having huge potentiality not only to popularize the discipline of anthropology, but through this museum we can really try to take up the issues of the community, right? But that we have largely failed. We are restricted ourselves to certain kind of studying of material culture or within the domain of lab. We could not go beyond taking museum as a kind of, and the linkages between the museum as a cultural space with the communities, and which can be perceived as a kind of an instrument of empowerment, that unfortunately we have failed to a large extent. This is true in the context of Arunachal. I don't have any hesitation to look at and talk about this domain. I have seen 5 years closely such museums across the country, and specifically in the context of Northeast. There are new concepts. The whole new museum movements has led to a different ideas altogether, which I think at least the established Department of Anthropology Manipur, Guwahati, Dibrugarh, and many others should look into and see how our discipline can be popularized through this core domain of anthropology, and how we can link up the communities and can serve the communities, do certain kinds of taking back and giving certain kinds of benefits to the communities instead of just doing research for our own consumption. Uh, then another area, I know that some works are done, but not in a very significant way. That is the what is called anthropology of child, or the looking at the issues of the children, or even the context of what we call the issues of physically challenged, the so-called disabled children. That kind of research is unfortunately very limited in the context of the state. Fortunately, one of our PhD scholars recently submitted thesis on this domain, addressing this domain, but there are so much to do in terms of looking at the domain called anthropology of children. I know that our international body have a special session on this issue, which Professor D.K. Behera perhaps looked at, but unfortunately we could not do much. I think Professor Gulruk Bebegam will talk about the physical, and Professor Manibabu is there. But I must say, in the context of prehistoric research in Arunachal, again, it's an extremely poorly addressed area. We don't find much significant work what late Professor Ashraf has done. Even Tagetada, the former director of the State Research Institute, recently one good PhD work was done on the megaliths of Arunachal, but beyond that, we don't find any kind of an systematic interventions by different other organizations, whether it is Archaeological Survey of India or the different other departments, anthropology departments of this region, who are coming and joining to explore this very important domain of anthropology. That's a serious lack in this area. And lastly, I will not go in extending much. I must tell what Judy was talking at the very beginning, that today we are living in the era of what we call the interdisciplinarity, right? So that is very important, that this is true for every discipline. So we should look at what can be the interdisciplinary intervention. For example, we live in a digital media. Social media it is became an extension of our mental frame itself. But how much of work we are doing looking at the impact of this digital media or this domain of social media in the context of the tribal population of the state. In the context of Arunachal, absolutely not, almost low. But can have some kind of an interventions, and most importantly, in order to anthropology popularize the discipline, and in order to exist in a very strong ground, we must be part of different kinds of policy research, right? That is very important. I should not teach or talk here about the importance of how anthropology can contribute to the domain of public policies. There are anthropologists who are working in our topmost IIM, in Indian Institute of Management. They are contributing to the policy of health research, but this is an area where we need to teach our student. There should be introduction of papers on this domain, and perhaps as a senior anthropologist or as a faculties, we must look at how our research can contribute to the different domains of public policies. This is very important to get the attention of such an unique discipline. I'll end up saying Professor Bhagavati, late Professor Bhagavati, again, my guru used to tell me that as a discipline, we have everything, right? Anthropology has borrowed since its history, if you look at from many other discipline, perhaps many other discipline borrowed much from our disciplinary frame, specifically the methodological domain. But in spite of having everything, we could not, perhaps we are a bad seller. We could not sell our disciplinary knowledge to a, I mean, we could not market it properly. That remains one of our lacuna in the context of the contemporary world. But I feel if we come out of our comfort zone and look at this issue collectively, individually, department or beyond department also, through different kinds of an institutional innovative research. I think anthropology as a discipline has a lot to do in terms of contributing for the people, not only the flexing of, we should not be biodata centric. If we are doing certain good amount of work, it will automatically going to help us this way or that way. We need to be more community centric, and we should try to have a kind of an what is called the engaged anthropology or the collaborative anthropology. Those kinds of ideas need to be promoted, so that the discipline of anthropology, which has huge potential in the context of the Northeast, in the context of any place you can think of, going beyond that traditional frame. I think we have a huge. Our students are also that can serve the needs of their employment possibilities, and also it can transform an individual in the sense of looking at the self and looking at the communities, looking at the neighborhood. That has also a huge implication in the context of the nation, which I mean, we are part of it. With this, let me end up. But I'll be happy if, in course of discussion, anything comes to me. I'll definitely try to respond in my own way. Thank you. Thanks for your patient hearing.
Thank you very much, sir, for your illuminating deliberation. Sir has broadly discussed about various colonial and post-colonial works conducted by various eminent anthropologists in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, like language studies, intangible cultural heritage, ethnography, and new ethnography, and so on. Sir has also mentioned about what budding anthropologists of the region should concentrate on in the coming days, like museum and anthropology, anthropology of child, public policy, and so on. I am sure that participants are benefited and encouraged a lot to listen lucid presentation of you. Thank you, sir. Now we are getting question from the participants, and we shall be forwarding the question to you, sir. May I read out the question?
Okay. How can enhance the research on children and anthropology of child? So there cannot be any kind of a general prescription on the issue, because the issue of the children, right, it may vary community to community wise. It may vary in the context of the state and its policies also. For example, I was recently, one of my student did in work on the cultural construction of childhood and the issue of disability, how state is looking at that issue, how the community or the family looking at that issue, what are the state policies. I'm talking about here state as a our nation, what about our national policies, and how state is the state of Arunachal also looking at this issue. So this is, it has to be, we cannot take a kind of an prescriptive mode. You have to decide what are the issues which concerns a community in the context of the children, what are the issues which may have beyond a specific community its importance. For example, this issue of what we earlier used to call the issue of disability. If you look at the other parts of our India, there are so much of work has been done even globally also. But when I narrow down to focus to the state of Arunachal, we found hardly you get literature to look at this issue. What about the earlier research feedbacks? Almost absolutely nil. So we have picked up that issue and continued with this kind of an research. So what I basically wanted to say that they are also constitute a substantive section of our total population, right? So whether it is you are going to focus on children education or the girl child's education or different other kind of the contemporary issues which penetrates their life, that has to be decided by the researcher. It cannot be given a kind of a general prescription. For example, somebody can try to look at what this ongoing pandemic, the so-called COVID-19, we are still not in post-pandemic situation, how this has affected the collective psyche or individual psyche of the children. Because right, somebody can work on the issues of what we call the social media. Through this pandemic, every children, almost the school going children, they are exposed to a kind of smartphones, right? I can just refer that recently the National Women Commission given me a project along with a team to look at how this pandemic time the cyber crime issue against the girls, what about the situation, whether it has raised, then what about the consequences, how it is affecting the life of the girls or even the women also. So what I mean, there can be similar kind of a study in the context of the children also who are, you can see the how the social media domain or the mobile as a digital gadget which has almost became a extension of our body parts, how this is making an impact among the children across the communities or a specific communities, right? So there are multiple possibilities. One has to decide which one you need to pick up, which one has a greater significance for the community A or community Z.
Thank you, sir. It was a nice interaction, and we all are grateful to you. Now we are moving for the next technical session. Our speaker is Professor M. Monibabu Singh, sir. The topic of his presentation is Anthropological Archaeology in Northeastern India, Issues with the Urgent Research Areas. Now, I would like to introduce Professor M. Monibabu Singh, sir. Professor M. Monibabu Singh, Head of the Department of Anthropology, Manipur University, Manipur, is a renowned prehistoric archaeologist of our country. His significant research publication, Anthropology of Manipur, Archaeological, Biological, and Cultural Dimensions is well read by the anthropologists of the world. His seminal work on the earthen vessels, particularly on the Sekmai pottery, the living tradition of megalithic culture, lithic stone tools of the Pleistocene period, needs no introduction. He also organized a national webinar on bamboo and can culture in Manipur. Professor Monibabu delivered Dharani Sen Memorial Lecture organized by the Indian Anthropological Society, Kolkata in 2016 and delivered talks in many reputed universities of our country, which is well appreciated. He had contributed a good number of modules of EPG Pathshala on anthropological archaeology. He is also a celebrated poet and has to his credit one collection of poems. Sir, may I now request you to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you, Dr. Julie Bora. Very good afternoon to all. Respected Dr. Mihir Ranjanath. Ah,
Sir, you are audible and
Respect.
visible too.
Okay. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible and visible too.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Julie Barwa, convener and moderator of today's webinar and head of the Department of Anthropology, Gurucharan College. Distinguished colleague panelists, Professor Sarit Chaudhuri and Professor Gulrukh Begum, all the distinguished participants, friends, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I feel highly privileged to be part of this platform and speaking something and share some thoughts on the urgent research in anthropology, especially of Northeast India. I, being a student of anthropological archaeology or prehistoric archaeology, would like to go with Northeast India
Sir, we are not able to hear from you. Sir? I think there are some internet related problem and we'll wait for sir's response. Sir, now it is visible. Sir, you can proceed.
Okay, okay. There, there have some technical problem. That's why.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can proceed now.
Mhm. So I would like to go with some issues on urgent research areas of anthropological archaeology in Northeast India. I would like to share my screen. Is it visible? Is it visible too?
Screen sharing is not visible. Sir, you
Okay.
please share your screen.
Stop sharing the window. Stop sharing the window.
Is it visible? Yeah.
My sister opinion.
Is it visible? Whether
Sir, you are audible only.
screen is not
Not yet.
visible?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Okay. I'll do it now. Okay. Yeah. See. Yeah. 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 Okay. Is it visible? Yeah. Can you share my slide? Hello? Yeah, didn't.
Okay, sir. It is coming.
Is it visible? You are in the show. Share totally. I need to do. PowerPoint. PowerPoint today. Can you share my PowerPoint? Hello? Totally. Ah, yeah. Hello? Can you see my screen? PowerPoint screen? Hello, Dr. Juri. Totally. Ah, screen đi right mà. Okay. Can you see my screen? Hello?
No, sir. Actually, in the last portion, there is one option that share. You can go
Aha.
through it.
I've shared, but
From your side only, you can do, sir.
okay. Ah,
Cancel for the other. Sequences of saying before. That was shared on the phone.
yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah. Hello. Can you see my screen? Yeah, there. Thấy cảm gì cảm ạ? Yeah, there. Ah, so my
Sir,
short lecture this afternoon
uh, sir, you
will.
please,
Hello.
sir, your
Hello.
screen we can see, and you please go for entire screen sharing option.
I'm sharing the screen, but
It is already okay, sir. It is coming.
okay. Thank you. So my short lecture this afternoon là mình làm về làm về Can you see my screen? Hello.
Coming, sir. You please continue.
Okay. This PowerPoint is visible.
It is
Hello.
visible, sir. It is visible, sir.
Hello, my screen is visible to you.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay. So my short lecture this afternoon is organized into 4 different components, parts. First, I will go with the present scenario of theoretical paradigm that is in vogue in archaeology worldwide. And again, I will go to the present trend of archaeological research, particularly the lithic archaeology in North India. Then beyond that little archaeology, I will try to go with ethnography to highlight the research priority with ethnoarchaeology. And I will come to the conclusion with a remark. So at the outset, I would like to go directly to the paradigmatic framework which are in vogue in the present archaeological discourse worldwide. So archaeological formation of different theoretical paradigm, a synergistic approach of gaining insight into cultures and peoples of the past. So within this paradigm, different methodology developed to achieve their respective goals and challenges in order to infer human behavior and ideas from material culture. So these theoretical schools have their own merits and their own rights. And in fact, building of theoretical framework remain a prerequisite for many research endeavor. So in fact, there is no single theory in archaeology, and until mid 20th century, there was a general consensus that archaeology was closely related to both history and anthropology. Now, we have three domains of archaeological theory. The first major phase developed during 19th and early 20th century, particularly in United States of America, and referred it as culture history. And it is best known for its emphasis on historical particularism. And during 1920s, this concept was intimately tied up with direct historical approach. And the second theory, we call it new archaeology, developed in 1960s by a number of American archaeologists like Lewis Winford, Ken Plenary, and others who rebelled against the concept or paradigm of cultural history. The third theory, we call it post-processual archaeology, developed in 1980s by a number of British archaeologists like Ian Hodder, Michael Sang, Christopher Kelly, etc. So these are the two eminent proponents of processual archaeology and post-processual archaeology respectively, Lewis Binford, an American archaeologist, and Ian Hodder, a British archaeologist. So let us go hurriedly with the concept, the mode of study or scale of inquiry or explanatory framework that deals with culture history. So genesis of culture history dates back to nearly 1800 in Germany with the works of many amateur and trained archaeologists. And there have some remarkable contribution from Denmark as well as England, particularly in Denmark. By that time in 1936, the concept of triage system was proposed by one uh, anthropologist, C.J. Thompson, and in England, in France, particularly in 1936, there were discovery of Abelian culture in Somme Valley by Boucher de Fortes. So these are the turning point to the development of culture history. So their foci of inquiry is descriptive, to describe and to make sequence in space-time frame, and more concerning with what are tools, what are the time period, and at this area, at this place, these were found. So they try to address the that the data for drawing inferences, theory, and inductive reasoning. So when we come to new archaeology, also known as post-processual archaeology, its genesis comes with the first, publication by Lewis Binford in American Antiquity in 1962. That article called Archaeology as Anthropology. So his proposition was that we should not only study the artifacts, the objects, but the people who made those artifacts. So we need to study the people behind artifacts. And uh, according to Lewis Binford or processual archaeologists, culture is taken as an extrasomatic means of adaptation. Here, they are dealing with the processes, system, and explanation, or hypothesis and testing. So material culture is taken mainly as a passive, not active. And uh, the question they usually address is how and why. So the tool used by new archaeologists are ethnoarchaeology, middle range theory, and experimental archaeology. Now coming to the third theoretical paradigm, that is post-processual archaeology. So processual archaeology strongly criticized processualist concept of scientific positivism, and this is an alternative to dissatisfaction with the new archaeological concept, and is the main contribution of Ian Hodder. And that took about 20 years to be effectively challenge the new archaeological concept. So post-processualists believe that the entire scientific approach of archaeology is flawed because we cannot possibly interpret archaeological phenomena without relying on our own cultural biases as part of interpretation. So they believe in the mentalist concept that culture is a mental, symbolic, and interpretation of artifacts, and things should go with the domains of symbolism, context, and human cognition. And they also believe that culture is an active component. So their focal inquiry is interpretative with the unique perspective, and they usually ask the question on how and why. So their explanatory framework comprises agency theory, symbolic structuralism, phenomenology, post-structuralism, critical theory, Marxist social thought, and hermeneutics. So the tool used by processual archaeology is ethnoarchaeology in order to put the objects being studied or investigated into a research context. So we have commonality between processual or new archaeology and post-processual archaeology, though they have some disparity in their concept on their method of interpreting the archaeological data. So let us have a quick look on the theoretical paradigm. Now we can have the comparison of these three theories in terms of the main purpose, mode of inquiry, and question addressed by each of them of their data, and the framework of their description, explanation, or interpretation. Now, we can see when we look into the main objective and purpose of those three theoretical perspectives, uh, one can experience a continuing confrontation between theoretical concepts at different time periods. So there show a paradigm shift giving rise to three tiers. First refers to the cultural history, second tier to the new archaeology, and third tier to the post-processual archaeology. And their theoretical domain may be referred to as the history of cultural history paradigm, science, scientific domain for new archaeology, and humanism for post-processual archaeology. Now, let us have a quick look on the archaeological research in Northeast India in order to know the status within the contemporary theories of archaeological discourse. So, Northeast India mainly comprises 8 states like Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Tripura, and Sikkim being the latest state being included. So we all aware that archaeologically this region is less known to the outside world, though it is located at a very significant geographical and geological area. So it is said that the history of archaeological work began in 1967 with a report by one John Lubbock on the first discovery of prehistoric culture. It was published in the June 22nd issue of the journal Athenaeum in London. So, with the efforts of many amateur trained archaeologists and workers, now we could get a good number of insights on the prehistoric lithic cultures, uh, right from Paleolithic till early historic times in almost all the states. So exploration, and test digging excavation have been carried on, And we got a good number of evidences of both Pleistocene and early Holocene lithic culture. However, these studies are mainly confined with the cultural history domain, describing and chronicling cultural sequence through time-space framework. So in fact, with the establishment of Anthropology department in 1948 in Guwahati University, and with the opening of specialization paper in prehistoric archaeology in 1968 in the department, systematic work began, exploring a number of sites that contribute to the understanding of past culture. And subsequently, a good number of discoveries were made, especially in Meghalaya and Manipur, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, which could reveal that northeast region of India possesses archaeological potential areas. Now, when we see statewise, Arunachal in Arunachal Pradesh, as we have seen, a very few, specific archaeological works has been done till now, and evidence of the lithic culture, particularly Neolithic period, has been reported uh, as early as 1871, and evidence of Neolithic tools have been reported till early part of 70s from a very limited areas of the state. However, we could find evidence of Paleolithic, particularly lower Paleolithic tools from Kabala and Tikong Valley in Papumpare district in 1990. And when we come to Assam, we have very significant evidence from two sites for Neolithic period. Those are Tauzali Hading in North Kasa Hills and Sarutaru site. So this Tauzali Hading site in North Kasa Hills was first excavated in 1961, 1963 by Professor led T.C. Sharma and M.C. Goswami, and could get Neolithic stone tools comprising ground soldier cells, quadrangular X, triangular X's, along with plan and court mark potsherds in stratified layers. So when we come to Nagaland, we do not find any significant works on stone tool archaeology. We can have the surface finds from time to time from Sema and Lotha territories. In Tripura also, we have very bigger work till that. However, Dr. Podar and Ramesh worked during 1983-89 in West Tripura in the Khua and Howrah Valley is worth mentioning, where as many as 700 tools comprising axes, cleavers, borers, and pebble tools are found, with potsherds having the C14 dating of 2,450 years to 1,190 years before present. So in terms of Meghalaya and Manipur, in terms of sites and finds, these two states yielded a good number of tools that can be assigned type of technology to all the Stone Age cultures. So in Meghalaya, we have a good number of Paleolithic tools. So from many important sites located in the West and East Garo Hills district. So we could find in the literature about 24 sites explored, 24 Pleistocene sites explored uh, in Meghalaya. Out of these 21 sites located in West Garo Hills district, and important sites comprises that of Rongram, then Waram, February, Shalbalgiri, and so on. So these important sites particularly comes from three river valleys of Rongram, Ganol, and Simshan. In terms of Holocene sites, particularly Hovenian and Microlithic sites, we have about 14 sites, 10 from West Garo Hills district, two sites from East Garhwal district and two sites from East Khasi Hill district. So this picture shows the Paleolithic tools uh, belonging to Lower Paleolithic and Middle Paleolithic from Meghalaya. And these are the Holocene lithics, Hovenian tools, and microliths from Meghalaya. And these are the tools found from Manipur, the Paleolithic tools from Nongpukatel Mandi and Khangkhui, chopper, chopping tools, and a good number of flag tools. Now, in terms of prehistory culture of Manipur, we have 5 sites explored till date belonging to Paleolithic period, and those are Songku, Khangkhui, Machi, Sintom, and Nongpukatel Mandi, locality 2 and 3. And regarding Hovenian culture, we have 2 sites from Tharon Cave and Nongpukatel Mandi, locality 1. So these are the Hovenian tools from Nongpukatel Mandi and Tharon Cave. And we also could find a good number of Neolithic shell and fort work pottery belonging to Neolithic period. And with some surface finds, we have found 3 important explored sites from Manipur. Those are Dapachik, Laimanai, and Funan. So, Professor Horish Sharma, as early as 1975, could give the temporal dimension of Meghalaya prehistory. So, he proposed this terminology of series 1, 2, and 3. In series 1, we have pebble tools and bifaces, particularly from Rongram, Rambhagiri, and Shivagiri. And from the track tools are found in series 2, having multifaceted striking platform with prominent bulb percussion. And series 3 tools comprises blades and blade tools. Tool types are scrapers, points, blades, and burins. And series 4 includes microliths, points, and scrapers. So this artifact bears similarity with those Stone Age tool complexes of India in terms of early, middle, and late Stone Age. And according to Professor Sharma, this Henex tradition of series 1 is parallel with the Persian culture of Java. Now, coming to the prehistoric cultural element in Northeast India, Professor T.C. Sharma proposed 5 different elements found in the prehistoric sites of Northeast India. First one is the presence of Abelian and late Acheulean types and Levallois Mousterian tradition, as well as plate industry. And then we have lesser development of microliths, and at the same time, during Holocene, early Holocene times, we found the presence of Abelian cultural elements based on the production of unifacial flag axes with platis oval pebbles. So, on the basis of the discoveries, Professor Sankalia, as early as 1981, gave a chronological sequence of Northeast Indian Stone Age prehistory, like New Stone Age, A and B, Mesolithic, late, middle, and early Paleolithic, and this belongs to the time period of between 200,000 BC to 1000 BC. Now, there are many sites yet to be fully investigated and excavated, and it is said that most of the piecemeal works on lithic are lacking to go with many research frames, such as lithic reduction sequence or chain operated experimental archaeology, and many more. that give the interpretation of the stone tools as well as stone tool cultural elements. So we need to have some more strategic domains on technology and nature of exploitation of the raw material and microware studies. And obviously, this will incorporate many more quite helpful and proper classification and interpretation of prehistoric tools. Now, we can go with uh, the archaeological research priority. And this research priority, beyond lithic archaeology, we can go to ethnoarchaeology in the sense that there are urgent research domain that we can go with uh, ethnoarchaeology. So by doing ethnography of the indigenous population of the Northeast India, we can go with ethnoarchaeological frame, and there we can find a good number of archaeological research priority. So as we have known, let us have a quick look on ethnoarchaeology, because we can go with ethnoarchaeology, and we have seen that ethnoarchaeology is a meeting point of processual archaeology and post-processual archaeology. In many areas, these two groups of, archaeologists have disparity. They are not, they do not have any commonality in their research paradigm, research program. But these two, group of archaeologists have a commonality, that is ethnoarchaeology. So both Binfordian and Hoderian, that is processual and post-processual archaeology, aim at explaining and interpreting archaeological materials through the lens of ethnographic data that has direct relevance to the model building. So explanation of processual archaeology consists of constructing human universal laws through the hypothetic deductive method. And in case of post-processual archaeology, it is a process of deciphering the meaning-laden constitution of material culture. So in order to explain and interpret the past prehistoric culture, they use ethnoarchaeology as a tool. Now, when we come to the concept of ethnoarchaeology, as we all know, it is the study of contemporary society to reconstruct the past, and it is to understand pattern behavior of the materials preserved in the archaeological record. So their main objective is to seek and expand the range of inferences drawn from past behavior from the archaeological data and improve confidence on their accuracy. Now, they have used ethnographic analogy or simply analogy and middle range theory in new archaeology as a research tool and framework. So this ethnographic analogy is based on similarity or comparison or precedent, that inference being made that if two things which resemble each other in certain known aspects will resemble each other in other unknown objects. So they use this ethnographic analogy. So we can classify ethnographic analogy into two groups, that is general comparative approach and direct historical approach. Richard Wall termed this general comparative approach as discontinuous, and Jan Hodder termed it as form analogy. At the same time, Richard Wall termed direct historical approach as continuous analogy or relational analogy by Hodder. So when we talk about comparative approach, it is based on the correlation between artifacts and behavior associated with them on a cross-cultural basis. And when we talk about direct historical approach, also known as folk cultural approach by David Clark, it is based on a demonstrable continuity from the prehistoric to the ethnographic. So Richard Gould's discontinuous analogy furnishes models of cultural adaptation that arise in areas that are widely separated in time and or space, yet possess essentially similar ecological and environmental characteristics. So when he referred to continuous analogy, it aims at linking the prehistoric adaptation being studied by the archaeologists stratigraphically and historically in the unbroken sequence to the historic cultural adaptation in the same area. Even if changes had occurred during the cultural sequence in question, the idea was that these could be explained in relation to the environmental changes observed within the same experience, same sequence. So the latest, kind of analogy given by Jan Hodder in 1982 is formal and relational analogy. So formal analogy of Jan Hodder is based on the assumption that if two objects or situations have some common properties, they probably also have some other similarities. Relational analogy refers, it seeks to determine some natural and cultural link between the different aspects in analogy. So let us come to the research priority under ethnoarchaeological domain. So we can have two areas in dealing with the research priority. What is the background and what is the rationale? So coming to the background, we can have the issue of cell-based ethnoarchaeological, ethnographic data and documenting agency or human activities to the formation of archaeological data. So the indigenous peoples of these 7 states of Northeast India deserve for a wide-ranging ethnoarchaeological works owing to the fact that though modernization has had its way to the sense, a handful of them still retain some of their traditional norms and practices duly interwoven with their mundane domain. So the best ethnography can be extracted by ethnoarchaeologists by going to the field through proper research design, and its significance lies with having appropriate information before their further dilution or threatened to be changed by the anthropogenic activities like modernization and westernization. So this venture has what we call dual opportunities. First one is getting cell-based ethnographic data, which may not likely be available in the near future due to further changes, and documenting agency or human activities uh, to the formation of archaeological data. The physical manifestation of resultant activities related to dynamic aspects of human life ways, which are reported rarely or ignored to document in normal ethnography. So, in case of rationale, we can have the archaeological grammar of discourse. And in case of this, with that discourse, that archaeological grammar, there will have some ground reality or prime areas that we can go with ethnoarchaeology. So, in the archaeological grammar of discourse, we have two domains. First domain is that archaeological data being formerly an integral part of sociocultural entities cannot be adequately studied by artificially described subsystem separated from the whole circuitry of interaction, which was its former context, and should be studied in a sociocultural and environmental context. This two archaeological grammar was proposed by Graham Clark in his book Analytical Archaeology. The second archaeological grammar of, discourse is that archaeological data being now detached from their systemic context may best be studied empirically as a material phenomenon with observable regularities in terms of their own attribute system, away from distortion of loose presuppositions about their former context. So both these propositions have merits in their own philosophy, but there may also have an argument that what is the detrimental to refer to both the domains in dealing with the finds. So when we come to the first area, now this first area, first grammar refers that while dealing with archaeological finds, artifacts, pieces, we should study it with a former context, former systemic context. Now we find a good number of artifacts in their archaeological context. But those archaeological finds were uh, previously in its former sociocultural or environmental context. And owing to that, after discard and abandon, that now come to the archaeological context. So while dealing with the archaeological finds and pieces, we need to study the past systemic or living context of those artifacts. The second grammar, the second domain refers that now those archaeological data have been detached from its earlier context. So we now only require to study dealing with their attribute system like typology, technology, and any other character that we have. So we need not go with their earlier, I mean, previous context. So these are the two archaeological grammar of discourse. So when we come to this first aspect, first grammar, it is very much relevant with the study of the present ethnographic data in the sense that with the help of this present ethnographic data, the contemporary society, the cultural or socio-cultural or environmental aspect, we can have some clue about the past cultural, I mean, domains. So uh, now another rationale is that why to go with ethnoarchaeology. So we've seen that many indigenous North Indian populations still retain their archaic character and follow traditional way of life, albeit globalization. And tradition continues to dominate their daily life. So
Sir, we are not able to see you.
Is it audible? You can see, no? Okay. Share the vlog.
The share button something else. Jadi kita untuk itu share.
Can hello? Hello?
Sir, you are audible and visible too. But sir, your screen is not coming. That PPT is not coming. Sir, you please go for screen sharing.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. Sir,
Okay. Am I audible? Am I audible to you? Can you
yes, yes, sir. You are. Yes, sir. You are audible and visible too. You please continue.
University
You please continue, sir.
University Taribra. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We
Hello,
can
Dr.
hear you and
Turi.
we can see you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. It is coming, sir. Both audio and video both are coming.
Ah.
You please continue, sir.
Okay. Ah, yeah, well, I will go with one example of ceramic archaeology studied on the perspective of processual ethnoarchaeological paradigm. So, Andhra is a pot-making population in the valley of Imphal in Manipur, and they make pots and only the females are excelled in the craft. So we could find that Andhra ceramics have significant interrelationship with culture as well as environment. So the phenomena of ceramic production, Andhra. Phenomena of ceramic production can be discussed in terms of cybernetic perspective, which reflects certain cultural and environmental conditions that have favored or limited to the origin, development, and continuity of the craft. So here we could find some cultural and environmental mechanism that counteract deviation from the stable situation of a ceramic system. So a good number of ceramic six or seven different functional categories like cooking, drinking, water storage, day, serving, etc. So only females are excelled in the craft. So this is a photograph of exploiting the resources, ceramic resources, particularly clay, and mending and pounding the ceramic clay resources, and making of initial making of pottery uh, by adding coils, then initial making of pot, then beating uh, uh, or green with a regular rug out, making of rug outs. Uh, Now this is the beating of semi-dried green pots and preparing open pairing of green pots in open space. Now when we go to with the ecology, number of input and out two factors of environmental and cultural factors. So in psychology, we could find two factors, environmental as well as cultural factors. They can make uh, the anthropods. So I tried to identify the ceramic systemic context, the intangible domains in explaining cultural and environmental factors. So I've come across mainly three different areas on ceramic ethnoarchaeology. First one is the seasonality of the craft. That means it is very much seasonal in making the pot, so it becomes a part-time job. So why is this seasonality? Why population is a part-time job? Then only women are actually the craft. So why this women follow monopoly of the craft? And within the women also, only unmarried females can take part in making the craft, in making the pot. Third area is the village monopoly of the craft. So these three questions could explain the cultural and environmental factors, the three domains, and why when we try to understand the first area, then why there is seasonality of the crop. It can be described in terms of the systems theory or system paradigm. So one is that there is visual or cultural restriction to the exploitation of the primary ceramic resources and their stability in their collection. And scheduling of pottery making with subsistence activities of farming. At the same time, there is adverse effects on pottery production by the inclement and damp weather during rainy season. That makes the craft a part-time job and a when talking of economy comes, we have two cultural factors at the same time two environmental factors. The cultural factors now women's role expectation and scheduling with other household works. That is, we could see the sexual division of labor in the society. So this sexual division of labor refers to the craft of pot making because this pot making is part of the household works. So only women are expected to go with the pot making job, and restriction of the craft to the unmarried females is also one of the monopoly of the craft in the sense that girls are not allowed to go with the craft because if these girls get uh, uh, the art of pot making during their unmarried times, and if they married to other villages, it may spread to some other villages. So there is restriction to the unmarried females. So that makes the crop a monopoly to the village level. So the environmental factor refers to the fact that this resource site, the resource collection sites are within the general power of the craft person, and they could get the ceramic resources readily in their surrounding. Now, another example at the end, I would like to go with megaliths in terms of its materiality and meaning. So it refers to the post-processual archaeological paradigm of Jan Hodder. So it may refer to the social, equation of prestige, status, and power through wealth. So now, in doing this, megalithism is a living culture to many tribes of Northeast India, among the Lagans, Karvis, and Khasis. So we find different types of megaliths scattered in many Naga inhabited areas in Manipur, particularly in Senapati district, neighboring to Nagaland. And important types include menhir, alignment, avenue, stone sheet, dolmen, etc. So these large stone monuments may be categorized as prestige technology to the people who erect them. So what is the interest here is that considerable investment of time, energy, and resources are done during erection. So we could see distribution of different megaliths in different clusters, making it as a physical and landscape. So this erection of megaliths with the concept of materiality to understand how particular pieces of stone are given form and meaning. So this physicality of large stone boulders that during meaning owes to an system of exposing one's ability to show one's wealth by way of giving feast to the fellow members at the cost of gaining position in the society. So the physicality of artifact in the form of erected monument is hence materialized, projecting meaning and message to the viewers. Now we can see how the wealth can to achieve the status in the society. So So this social status comes through giving piece of merit and now some of the direct convenient fair place to commemorate fallen victims, host arranges rice and meats of beef and pork, which are to be served to all who join the ceremony. So there are series of feasts. So erection of monuments and giving piece of merit by a donor is basically reciprocal. In the sense each requirement for a person to have a social status in the society. And yeah, ah, setuju. Ya, Mbak. So, successful performer, I mean the donor, the patient may automatically acquire the social sanction to wear a special cloth. We call it faiju, with distinctive embroideries on them and to add how horns of the animals still on their dwelling. So this is for my couple with prestigious attire, the clothes which can put on only those who had performed the piece of merit and had erected a stone monument. So now we can see two example, one with the processual ethno-archaeological perspective and another with post-processual archaeological perspective. One on ceramic ecology and another with living megalithism. Now I'm coming to the concluding remark. So in order to engaged by the Northeast Indian archaeologists, global archaeological discussion, adoption of new paradigm is advocated, and the prevalent mid 20th century paradigm should be replaced with the emergent paradigm and in alignment with current trend in archaeological theory. So native peoples analog for the past owes to the fact that indigenous libraries, traditional knowledge system are still actively continuing and are very much interwoven with their mundane domain. Their indigenous while worldviews are still alive, which are transmitted through generations over. So, drawing simple analogies between contemporary people and distant past does not have merits in making implication, owing to the fact that some of the ongoing traditions still have the archaic element that have been inherited through generation through memory, continually cultural. So in fact, the world of the indigenous population and highland are still retaining indigeneity. Many of them have embraced alien religious faith. So owing to this, some of the indigenous elements are still continuing either transmission of meme or favorable strategic element of adoption to the continuing ecosystem of subtropical climate since the onset of Holocene. So recognition of behavioral flexibility and diversity in terms of indigenous peoples' interaction with their habitat can be matched by a plurality of new methodological approaches to describe and explain human culture and behavior. At last, I would like to go with one remark to conclude my deliberation. Now I am reproducing one statement echoed by Revered Guru, led Professor T.C. Sharma, a retired professor and head Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University. Quote, when the archaeological sites of this region are destroyed and buried under the human habitation of the fast-growing population, Northeast India will lose its rich cultural heritage of the past, and this will create a cultural vacuum in terms of historical perspective. So with that, I conclude my deliberation. Thank you all. Thank you.
Stop seeing.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Sir has broadly discussed about various archaeological theories, culture history, new archaeology, post-processual archaeology, and prehistoric archaeology of Northeast India, like prehistoric sites, tools discovered from different parts of Northeast India, prehistoric cultural elements, and Sir has also discussed about archaeological research priority to be continued in the coming days. Thank you very much, sir. And because of time constraint, and we don't want to go for interaction session. Now we would like to proceed for the last presentation. Our last speaker is Professor Gulrukh Begum Madam. Madam will be speaking on the topic keeping it in the family, consanguinity in the riverine areas of Borpeta, Assam. I would like to introduce Professor Gulrukh Begum Madam. Professor Gulrukh Begum, Guwahati University, Assam, is one of the senior biological anthropologists of Northeast India. She received University Gold Medal for being first in order of merit in MSc in Anthropology 1990 from Guwahati University. She was also the ICSSR Doctoral Fellow at the Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University in the year 1993. Before joining Guwahati University as a lecturer in anthropology in 2008, Professor Begum was also working as a lecturer in anthropology, Dibrugarh University from 1995 to 99. Her areas of research and teaching interest are human oxology, health and nutrition, studies on consanguinity, and population genetics studies. Professor Begum was the editor of the Bulletin of the Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University, a peer-reviewed journal for 6 back issues. She is the life member of various professional associations, namely Indian Science Congress Association, Kolkata, Ethnographic and Folk Culture Society, Lucknow, Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropology, West Bengal, Indian Anthropological Society, Kolkata, Northeast India Council for Social Science Research, Shillong, and also the Vice President of Guwahati Regional Committee of Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropologists. Professor Begum has completed a major research project entitled Impact of Consanguinity on Health, a study in Borpeta district, Assam from 2018 to 2020, funded by the Indian Council of Social Science Research. She has more than 80 research articles in various national and international journals. She has acted as a resource person, given many plenary lectures, and shared many technical sessions in various national and international conferences. Madam, now may I request you kindly to proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Jury Bora. I believe I am audible as well as visible. Kindly confirm.
Yes, madam, you are both audible and visible too.
Dr. Jury Bora, am I audible and visible?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam, you are audible and visible too.
Okay, thank
You please
you.
continue.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jury Bora. So before consuming any more time, let me straight away start my talk. So esteemed Vice Principal, Dr. Mihir Ranjan Nath, convener of this webinar, Dr. Jury Bora, Head of the Department of Anthropology, Guru Charan College, distinguished speakers, Professor Sari Chaudhary and Professor Mani Babu Singh. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, let me thank the organizers of this webinar of GC College, Principal Dr. Bibhas Deb, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Rajeshri Paul, and the Head of the Department of Anthropology for inviting me to deliver the talk on urgent research in anthropology with special reference to Northeast India. The talk that I am going to deliver today is titled Keeping It in the Family, Consanguinity in the Riverine Areas of Borpeta, Assam. This is a community-based study which was done to assess the ill effects of consanguinity in the riverine areas of Borpeta, Assam. Such marriages form an integral part of cultural and social life, not only in India as a whole, but in the northeastern states as well. So I feel the present study calls for an urgent research in anthropology in Northeast India. Let me share my screen. My screen is visible, I believe. May I get the confirmation,
Yes,
please?
madam. Yes, madam. It is visible. You please continue.
Dr. Jury Bora, my
Yes,
screen is visible to all?
yes, madam. It is visible to all. You please continue.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So this work or this talk that I'm delivering today is based on my findings that I have done as a major research project in the riverine areas of Borpeta. And some of a part of the results I am presenting today in front of everybody, and I believe that everybody will like with it. So regarding consanguineous marriage, what really do we mean when we talk about consanguineous marriage? Because in human genetics, consanguinity not only includes the first cousin couples, but the definition extends to individuals who share one or more common ancestors. But in medical genetics, consanguineous marriage is commonly defined as union between couples related as second cousins or closer. As a working definition, unions contracted between persons biologically related as second cousins or closer are categorized as consanguineous, having one or more ancestors in common, no more remote than a great grandparent. Now, worldwide, the most common form of consanguineous marriage is between first cousins, who on average have co-inherited 1/8 of their genes from one or more common ancestors. So they are the parental generation, then are the siblings. The children will be the first cousins, and the children of the first cousins will be the second cousin, and the children of the third cousin will further of the second cousin will further be called as the third cousin. Now, when we talk about the relationship terms are the father, mother, uncle, aunt, sister, brother, and sister. Now, your first cousins are the people in your family who have two of the same grandparents as you. In other words, they are the children of your aunts and uncles. Who are second cousins? Your second cousins are the people in your family who have the same great grandparents as you, but not the same grandparents. Third, fourth, and fifth cousins will be your third cousin have the same great great grandparents, fourth cousins have the same great 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 grandparents, and so on. Now, there is another terminology that we use in consanguinity, which is called as the removed. So that when the word removed is used to describe a relationship, it indicates that the two people are from different generations. You and your first cousins are in the same generation, two generations younger than your grandparents. So the word removed is not used to describe your relationship. That means between the first cousins. Once removed will be, the words once removed means that there is a difference of one generation. For example, your mother's first cousin is your cousin once removed. This is because your mother's first cousin is one generation younger than your grandparents. This one generation difference equals once removed. What is twice removed? The twice removed means that there is a two generation difference. You are two generations younger than a first cousin of your grandmother. So you and your grandmother's first cousin are first cousins twice removed. Now, there are two words which goes together. It is the inbreeding and consanguinity. So inbreeding is the genetic consequence of consanguineous marriage. The categories of consanguineous marriage could be between the double first cousin. Who are the double first cousin? When two sisters marry two brothers and their children will be double first cousin. That means from both the sides, their parental, their mothers as well as their father's generation, they are first cousins. So double first cousin from both the sides, mother as well as the father. Uncle and niece marriage is also a type of consanguineous marriage. Between the first cousins, of course, it is, I have told before, who are the first cousins. Then first cousins once removed, when we remove one of the generation from one side, then it is the marriage between the first cousins once removed. Then second cousin, that is the children of the first cousins are called as the second cousin, and a marriage between the second cousins will be second cousin marriage, which is again a consanguineous marriage. Second cousins, double second cousins are again the children of the second cousins. They will be second cousins from both the sides. Now, we can calculate the coefficient of consanguinity. What is coefficient of consanguinity then? So it is the probability that the offspring from two related persons will be homozygous at a given locus for an allele transmitted by a common ancestor. Because consanguinity or inbreeding, it always leads to higher risk of probability of offspring having homozygosity at a particular locus. And if that locus carries a harmful gene, then it becomes much more prominent. So coefficient of consanguinity is equal to 1/2 the value of coefficient of relationship. How recessive disorders are inherited then? Now, everyone inherits a gene from each parent for every inherited characteristic. For example, one gene for eye color from the mother and one gene from the father. The diagram shows a healthy couple here. They both carry a normal gene and a changed gene. For instance, they are healthy carriers because they are not in a homozygous state. When both the parents carry a changed gene for the same characteristic, there is a chance that a child could inherit a genetic disorder. The parents don't have the genetic disorder because one of the genes for this characteristic is a normal gene. So here the parents are normal carriers, but among the children in the next generation, a child may born with an inherited disorder because he may inherit two of the changed genes, and the rest of the children may not be the affected ones, because the 50% of them will be carriers and 25% will not even be a carrier, not even affected. Now, what happens when cousin marriage takes place? Now, blood-related couples have a greater chance of having a child with an inherited disorder because genes get passed on in families. Therefore, if a brother and sister are both carriers of a changed gene, their children may also be carriers of the changed genes. If their children, who would be cousins, marry, they would have the same possibility of having a child with an inherited disorder if it's a recessive one. Now, the coefficient of inbreeding is the probability that two alleles at any locus are identical by descent from a common ancestor. And we calculate it by the formula of F, which is equal to summation of the different steps that we take. So N is the number of the connecting links between the two parents through common ancestor, and Fa is the coefficient of inbreeding of the common ancestor A. So I'm not going into the technical details of how to calculate the coefficient of inbreeding, but I will come to the next slide. The coefficient of consanguinity for different kinds of parental relationships are between the father and the daughter. The coefficient of consanguinity of the offspring is 0.25. Among the uncle niece, if the marriage takes place, then the coefficient of consanguinity of the offspring will be 1/8 or 0.125. Among the double first cousin, the coefficient of consanguinity is 0.125. Among the first cousin, it is 0.0625. Half first cousin, it is 0.03125. Among the first cousin once removed, it is 0.03125. Among the second cousins, it is 0.0156. Second cousins once removed, it's 0.00781. Among the third cousins, it's 0.00390. Among brother sister, the coefficient of consanguinity is very high. It is 0.25. Among the half brother sister, it is 0.125. Regarding the global prevalence of consanguinity, less than 1% is in some areas of the world. It is in United States, Russia, Australia, parts of Latin America, and Europe. From 1 to 10% consanguinity, prevalence of consanguinity is in China, Latin America, North India, Japan, South Europe, and Canada. Between 10 to 50% of consanguinity is prevalent in the Arab countries, in Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, South India, and some parts of Southeast Asia, mostly Africa. Now, consanguineous marriage is most common in North Africa, the Middle East, West Asia region, which are Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Cyprus, Gaza Strip, Georgia, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Arab Republic, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, West Bank, and Yemen and South India. In other words, more than half of the world's population live in areas where consanguineous marriage is widespread. High consanguineous rates are also found among the migrants from Pakistan, India, the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia, becoming permanent residents in Europe, USA, and Canada. For example, 2 million Maghrebians in France, 1.5 million Turks in Germany, 0.5 million Pakistanis in the UK. In Japan, consanguineous marriage used to be common, but the tradition declined as the country was industrialized and became prosperous after World War II. It was also common in China until recently, but first cousin marriage was prohibited by law in 1981. Now, what is the case in India? A most majority of Muslim community of North India still prefer consanguinity. The NFHS data show that the prevalence of consanguineous unions in the Muslim population varies across the 5 regions of India. They also reveal that the overall levels of these unions have essentially remained stable over the last 4 decades. Bittles has also reported that a very high consanguinity rate of 55% is present in Pondicherry and 26.4% in Maharashtra. The prevalence of consanguineous marriage is around 12% in the Indian context, and among the Muslims, it is 22%. State-wise prevalence of consanguinity shows that in the northeastern states, it is 3.5%, which includes only the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. Bittles has reported in the year 2002 that 1.7% consanguinity in Assam with a mean inbreeding coefficient of 0.001. And another study done in 1998 by Limbu and Ghosh, they have reported that due to demographic compulsion in the North Kachar Hills district, consanguineous marriages have been found among the Saimsa, which is an offshoot of the Dimasa. The mean coefficient of inbreeding was reported as 0.00031878. Why are we interested to study consanguinity? Do we really know the adverse effects of consanguinity on health? We should know actually. Do we really know if there are advantages versus disadvantages? Because the reality is something else. We do not know about the advantages versus disadvantages. Now, consanguinity increases the risk of expression of autosomal recessive conditions in the offspring. This effect is more pronounced for rare disorders. Okay, this is one of the effect of consanguinity, which increases the risk of expression of any autosomal recessive condition because it becomes homozygous after consanguinity. What are the adverse effects of consanguinity then? Consanguinity has a relation with morbidity. Congenital defects with a complex etiology appears to be more common in consanguineous families, possibly reflecting rare or even unique recessive mutations, and there is a greater likelihood of recurrence. Elevated rates of cerebral palsy have been reported. Elevated levels of alpha and beta thalassemia, rare complex hemoglobinopathies involving both alpha and beta chain mutations have been found. Both mild and severe learning disability tend to be increased in frequency. Many single gene disorders are present at increased prevalence in consanguineous progeny, including autosomal recessive, non-syndromal hearing loss, blindness caused by early onset retinal dystrophies, childhood glaucoma, and anophthalmus and microphthalmus. These are some of the photographs of cerebral palsy, which gets increased because of consanguinity when it gets into expression among the inbreds. Consanguinity and complex disorders are also very higher. Now, the occurrence of malignancies, congenital abnormalities, mental retardation, physical handicap has been found to be significantly higher in offspring of consanguineous than non-consanguineous marriages. The appearance of autosomal recessive diseases and congenital anomalies, including hydrocephalus, post-axial hand polydactyly, and bilateral cleft palate, bipolar disorders, depression, dysphalinopathy, reproductive disorders, sterility, infant mortality, child death, spontaneous abortions, and stillbirths are very high in frequency among the inbred. Positive association has also been found between consanguinity and Down syndrome, and also ventricular septal defect and atrial septal defect, atrioventricular septal defect, pulmonary stenosis, and pulmonary atresia. These are some of the congenital anomalies where the rate gets increased because of consanguinity. There is an association of consanguinity and birth defects also, the congenital disorders. The frequency of congenital malformations among the newborns of first cousin unions is about 2 times the frequency among the general population. Instead of a rate of 2 to 3% of birth defects in the general population, the risk of first cousin couples is around 5 to 8%. A significant positive association has been consistently demonstrated between consanguinity and congenital defects, which appear to be both more prevalent in consanguineous families and have a greater likelihood of recurrence as well. Now, what is the situation that is taking place in Borpeta? Now, after doing the field work for the major research project, we have come to some very amazing findings from Borpeta area, which I would like to share with you all. So, the present study, which was conducted cross-sectionally among the Muslims living in the different villages of temporary, semi-permanent and permanent river islands of Borpeta district in Assam. The river islands are Utmari, Sor, Chasra 2, which falls under the Bagbor revenue circle, Dharmapur Sor, Patnapaiti Sor, Sukharjhar Sor, Sitoli Nisanor Sor, Bagmara Sor, Alupati Sor, Kathiamari Sor, Tukar Sor, Moinbori Sor, Kalairdia Sor, Nisanor Sor, Kathiamari Sor, Uziror Sor, Kadamtala Sor, Dolgoma Sor, Govindpur Sor. So the study area, it involves all the riverine areas, and these riverine areas, some of them are permanent areas, permanent islands, and some are semi-permanent, and some are completely temporary, which get submerged whenever there is a flood. So this is one of the photographs which shows that their house it's got inundated in flood, and the way they are living during that period is really very disheartening. So these river islands are extremely unstable and are continuously subjected to erosion. The location of these islands are affected almost every year. The islands get submerged, then they continuously have to shift to other areas, and some are, of course, they do not get submerged, and some are, of course, permanent, and some are semi-permanent, but many, they get submerged. So you can look at these photographs, and even the roads inside the villages also get submerged, and they have to walk in this way. So these are again the photographs of the field work that we have conducted in those SOR, in Alupatti Majer SOR. This is my field team, a research assistant, and they have assisted me in the field. So due to heavy and unpredictable bank erosion, the people living in these areas are worse affected, and they have to repeatedly change their settlement sites. Many cases now, after going through the cases which have been found in the different islands, river islands, we have come across many inherited disorders in the different source of Borpeta. Albinism is an autosomal recessive trait in man, and we have found one case of albinism. This albinism was this was found by one of my student, Dr. Dhanmani Medhi. She has also worked among the consanguinity, in the line of consanguinity among the Saur peoples, and that was a comparative study between the river island people and the people, those who are not in the permanent settlements, so among the Saurs and the non-Saurs, and she found some cases of albinism as well in her study. We have also come across polydactyly in Alupatti Majer Saur. You can look at the case of polydactyly that we have found in one of the Saur, which is named Alupatti Majer Saur. This is hand polydactyly. In case of the boy also, we have found a polydactyly. In case of the girl also, in both the hands, she has polydactyly, the sixth finger. She has got an additional finger after the little finger. Not only polydactyly of hands, but polydactyly of feet has also been found by us. So you can see there is a polydactyly in the feet as well. So after the little toe, there is another toe, which is a polydactyly of the feet. And polydactyly is a dominant condition, is a dominant trait. And the dominant trait in this case is rare, and the recessive trait, which is the normal, is quite common. But the polydactyly, even if it is a dominant trait, it's quite rare. But in these areas, we have come across many cases of polydactyly, not only in the hand, but also in the feet as well. We have also come across ectrodactyly of the feet. So when polydactyly and ectrodactyly are part of larger syndrome, then they form a recessive character. Otherwise, it is a dominant character. So when they are a part of a larger syndrome, they act as recessive. So you can see this one condition of ectrodactyly of the feet. So many cases of polydactyly, I'm not showing you all the slides here, but we have come across many cases of polydactyly, not only of hand, of feet, but also ectrodactyly of the feet also among the people over there. We have also come across complex disorders in Alopati Major in the consanguineous family among the inbred. So you can look at the photographs that these complex disorders have been found by us in the different river islands. These are again some of the examples of complex disorders in those areas, and these disorders have been found only among the inbreds that we have found. Consanguinity again has an effect on the reproductive health of the people. How? Now, consanguinity and prenatal losses are there. How? Because the abortion rates among the consanguineous and non-consanguineous couples are comparable. Stillborn rates are either similar or slightly higher among the consanguineous couples than the non-related couples. Increase in the rates of abortion, stillbirth, prenatal losses, neonatal deaths were found. It has an effect on the fertility also. This may be attributed to, it's an indirect association because of younger female age at marriage, which leads to increased maternal reproductive span. Compensation, this is always given as an reason that compensation for higher infant mortality among the consanguineous couples as an attempt to achieve their desired family size. In some such studies, fertility as measured by the number of pregnancies and taking into consideration marriage duration, and it was not found to be affected by consanguinity. So there are many theories regarding consanguinity and effect on reproductive health. So we have also looked into the reproductive health and the mortality among the people over there, but the analysis portion is yet to get completed, so I am not able to present before you those analysis reports. But the relationship of consanguinity and early mortality is present because early postnatal mortality is higher in the progeny of consanguineous unions. Consanguinity is also associated, and associated deaths largely concentrated during the first year of life has been found. Even multiple deaths also have been reported in specific consanguineous families from developing and developed countries in proportion to the level of parental genetic relatedness. Even I have also found some these multiple deaths in some of the families, in some of the consanguineous families, where the ladies have reported they have multiple stillbirth in their pregnancy span. Even studies in India, I have not included that over here. So studies in India have indicated that early postnatal mortality is higher in the progeny of consanguineous unions owing to the expression of deleterious recessive genes. Consanguinity, birth outcomes, and anthropometric measurements. Now, an association with anthropometric measurements has also been reported by many researchers, where it has been shown that inbreeding diminishes body size as judged by a variety of anthropometric measurements. A negative correlation exists between consanguinity and anthropometric traits. Even small but significant effects of consanguinity on weight, height, chest girth at the age of 9 months has been reported by Morton in 1958. Even in India also, Krishan has reported in a study on the Sunni Muslims of Delhi, aged 10 to 19 years, he has found that the children of consanguineous parents were small in all the anthropometric measurements, and the children of children of non-consanguineous control groups. Even Padaya and Reddy in the year 1980, they have also found an inbreeding caused diminution of all the anthropometric measurements. The measurements that they took were weight, height, chest girth, head length, except head breadth. Even Mukherjee in 1982, in 1990, Mukherjee and Lakshmanadu, they have found mean values of the physical measurements of the offspring of consanguineous marriage are lower than that of the non-consanguineous marriages. Even I have also found, after analysis of the anthropometric measurement, I have found across some depreciation in the percentage of anthropometric measures that I would like to share with you. So this is the depreciation that I have found in the stature measurement when I have divided the consanguineous samples, inbred samples, into two categories of lower degree of inbreeding and higher degree of inbreeding. To my utter surprise, I did not get any significant result between the two degrees of inbreeding in case of stature. But when I compared the mean measurements of the inbred with the non-inbred, I did found in some of the ages significant level of changes between these two categories of inbred and non-inbred, which I have shown it here with single star mark at the level of 5% and double star mark at the level of 1%. Also, the same result where among the two categories of inbred, the lower and the higher degrees, I did not get any significant changes in their sitting height, but the changes were at the significant level between the inbred and the non-inbred boys. This is only in case of the boys in their sitting height. Same is the case with lower extremity length also. So in all the measurements that I have taken, among them in all the anthropometric measurements, may it be the linear measurements or may it be the circumferential measurements, all the circumferential measurements that I have taken, the waist circumference, abdominal circumference, the hip circumference, the arm circumference, all of these measurements, they did not show any significant differences between the inbred and the non-inbred, but the significant differences were present among the no significant difference was found among the lower and the higher degree of inbred, but significant results have been found between the non-inbred and the inbred. So in this table also, in case of the lower extremity length, here in the last column, we can see that at 4 years, at 5 years, at 7 years, so there are in the pre-adolescent as well as during the adolescent periods, we do find significant differences between the inbred and the non-inbred at the level of 5% as well as at the level of 1%. So these are the other measurements that I am presenting here. In case of the body weight also, same result we can see here, that between the two degrees of inbreeding, no significant differences found, but among the inbred and the non-inbred, there are significant differences at starting from 3 years onwards. Okay, so at 3 years, at 7 years, then at 10 years, even at 13. So in the adolescent as well as in the pre-adolescent period, we are getting significant differences between the inbred and the non-inbred, not only in the linear measurement, but also in the body weight. And these are the rest 3 are the circumferential measurements that I have given here. This is the waist circumference. So in the waist circumference, we are getting a significant significant difference only at 7 years between the inbred and among the when we compare the non-inbred and the inbred result. And this is in case of abdominal circumference, where also we are getting a significant difference at 7 years at the level of 1% between the inbred and the non-inbred in their abdominal circumference. But in the rest of the at the level of 5%, the difference is significant. But in the rest of the age categories, it is not significant. Measurement that I am presenting here is of the hip circumference. And in case of the hip circumference, at 7 years, then at 10 years, then 11 years, and 14 years, I am getting a significant difference between the inbred and the non-inbred in case of their hip circumference. But the difference between the 2 degrees of inbreeding is at insignificant level at all the ages. So what I want to say here is that there is a depreciation percentages which are present in all the anthropometric measurements, maybe in the linear or the circumferential or the body weight. But of course, the circumferential measurements are showing a very less depreciation, and it's significant only in a few age categories. So this is during the growing period. But I have not shown you regarding the other tables where we have found that during adulthood, there is no significant result. Okay, so in our study, we did not find any significant difference between the inbred and the non-inbred in the adult ages from 20 years onwards up to 50 plus age categories, where we did not find any significant difference between the age categories, between the inbred, between the non-inbred, between the 2 degrees of inbred. Everything is at a non-significant level. The significant difference that we are getting is only during the growing phases. So in other studies, a positive association between inbreeding and a very wide range of common adulthood disorders, including hypertension, coronary heart disease, stroke, cancer, unipolar and bipolar depression, asthma, gout, peptic ulcer, osteoporosis, have been found in many of the studies. And one of the study is among the Dalmatian Islands in Adriatic Sea, which was done by Rudhan and his colleagues in the year. It was published in the year 2003. But in my case, I did not find any association of inbreeding with the anthropometry or with any of these disorders. I did not find any association. So we need to look into some of the social aspects to study the relationship of consanguinity and the results that we get in anthropometric measurements, because these social conditions are much more important, which are sometimes overlooked by many of the researchers, because many of the works because so many of the works, they have not taken into account the social factors like the economic status of the families, the age of the mother. So all these, further the nutritional status, all these factors have not been studied. So maybe during the growing phases, the changes that we are getting could be because of any of the social factors that is yet to be studied by us also. But an association of chronic adult non-communicable disease such as diabetes, hypertension with parental consanguinity, though is not clear, but control studies in population with high consanguinity rates are needed to look into the association between these diseases. Now, what are the reasons for choosing consanguinity? Because consanguinity is a deeply rooted cultural trend in certain communities. It is also chosen by many families. Why? Because it is more favorable for the woman's status. A wife would have better relationship with her in-laws and could be protected by them in time of need. There is a general belief that marrying within the family reduces the possibility of hidden health and financial uncertainties. Premarital negotiations regarding financial matters of marriage are more easily conducted, keeping the money and property within the family. So it is mostly the social factors which comes into play when consanguinity is being selected by the families all over the world. It also strengthens the family ties and enforces family solidarity. Now, the cultural constructs of consanguinity, we did look into a few cultural constructs, and these are the findings that we have found, and these are the conceptual properties about consanguinity in Borpeta that we can categorize it as. I have given two subheadings. One is luck and destiny. What they believe that people, I talked with them about the effects of consanguinity on the health of the people, the first reaction of the people was that they were not ready to listen to these concepts about the effect of cousin marriage. They were not welcoming the idea when I talked about them. Now, even some people, they were of course very enthusiastic, and here the concept of education, it comes into play also. Now, consanguineous marriage, according to some of the people, could not be the reason behind the abnormalities, because many in the village have married their cousins and they have no such issues. So that is quite right for them also, from their point of view also, that many people, they have married their first cousin, but they don't have these issues. So it's not always sure that they will have these type of abnormalities in their families. So they have left it to their luck and destiny, that if some abnormality arises, it is because of their luck, because of their bad luck, ill luck, or because it was the destiny, it was written for them. That is why these abnormalities comes up in their family. So this is one of the photographs of the wedding taking place in one of the riverine areas in one of the villages. Now, why in Borpeta people are choosing consanguinity? The prevalent belief in the SOR areas is that consanguineous marriage are a source of secured and stable marriage drive, because these people, they are more interested, they are more inclined towards a settled life, a stable married life, because they are living in very hardships. Their physical conditions are so hard that they need a stable married life with relationship between in-laws which extends beyond the couple, because according to them, the relationship is not between a husband and a wife, but it extends beyond the couple also. If a marriage is successful, it will be followed by others between the two families. And consanguineous marriage among these people, it forms a kind of social capital, because it is the relatives who will provide for a person in need and distress. Cousins always help, support, and maintain the social security of a person. This is their version of choosing consanguinity in those areas. Now, in conclusion, I will say that culturally speaking, the first point that I have come out is that there is less awareness and knowledge of genetic issues among the villagers. So genetic problems are considered an important issue among the scientists and less concern among the people. So we scientists are more, we feel it to be more important. The doctors, they feel it more important, but it is of lesser concern among the people, as the present study has shown. The people in the community believe that disease is a matter of destiny and luck. Notion of luck and destiny is dominant in indigenous knowledge also. The current study found that community knowledge, belief of indigenous practices are the main causes responsible for the prevalence of cousin marriages. They feel protected by their system of belief. No doubt, economic condition plays a major role in the practice. So marrying among the relatives doesn't require an exorbitant sum of dowry. So dowry system is prevalent among these people. So it sometimes it becomes a mean of escape from the exorbitant sum of dowry that they have to pay. So financial matter or the financial factor is very important behind the consanguinity or the practice of consanguinity in these backward areas. I'm bound to say backward because even the education is also not nowadays it is coming up, but it is not up to that level. So people need to be educated about the ill effects of consanguinity also. So in my case, in these areas, the social benefits of consanguinity has outweighed the biological damages. But it should not be like that because many in the community are ignorant about these facts. So they always think about the social benefits coming out of consanguinity because they don't know, they are not aware of these biological damages. Once they are given the education about the biological damages, maybe they will think of some other ways of getting married. And of course, financial constraints, the economic constraint is always there. What the World Health Organization is saying, the World Health Organization insists that attempts to stop consanguineous marriage are undesirable and inappropriate because many of the data are exceedingly poor, the results that we are getting. So from the data, they have come to the conclusion that the data are not up to the mark so that we can stop the consanguinity. So they have said that it is undesirable and inappropriate if we stop the consanguineous marriages, because some degree of inbreeding has been the norm for much of human history. So sometimes I feel that the whole concept of consanguinity has been overstated in many of the studies. So this is my research team with the villagers. This is the permanent riverine village, which is very fertile. The land is so fertile that some people are very affluent enough. So once they are financially stable, they think apart from consanguinity. That I have found. So thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for a nice and informative session. Madam has elaborately discussed about inbreeding, global prevalence of consanguinity in various parts of the world, genetic consequences of consanguinity as a whole, and more particularly among the Borpeta areas of Assam, like complex disorders in Alupatti, Majer source area, polydactyly, ectrodactyly of feet, consanguinity and reproductive health, consanguinity and early mortality, and so on. Thank you very much, madam. There are some questions, but because of time constraint, we won't go for the interaction session. Now we are coming to the end of the session. I owe great respect to all the invited speakers of today's webinar. You have provided us with fruitful discussion and exchange of views and ideas among the scholars. Apart from the participants, I could also get the opportunity to learn from you. I express my deepest sense of gratitude, reverence, and indebtedness to Professor Sarthak Sengupta, former faculty and head, Department of Anthropology, Dibrugarh University, for his constant encouragement and timely suggestion to make this event a great success. I am grateful to my colleagues, Mr. Ashok Kumar Guptaroy sir, Dr. A.F. Gulenur Islam Barbhuya, Mr. Obhidip Sarkar, Dr. Devashish Sharma, Dr. Keshav Luitel sir, and all the esteemed faculty members of Gurucharan College who have lent their full cooperation in organizing this webinar. Now, I would like to request Mr. Ashok Kumar Guptaroy sir, former faculty of the Department of Anthropology, Gurucharan College, and presently working as a guest faculty in the department, to propose the vote of thanks to all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. A lovely and warm afternoon to everybody and to distinguished speakers who, in spite of their busy schedule, accepted our proposal and delivered uh, lectures so lucidly. I, it is a matter of pride for me that I am proposing a vote of thanks for this webinar. Our webinar, a national webinar on urgent research in anthropology with special reference to Northeast India. On behalf of my alma mater and the entire college fraternity, I convey my sincere gratitude to all the speakers for sharing their graceful words in today's webinar. At the outset, I have the privilege to mention the name of Dr. Keshav Luitel, Assistant Professor, Department of Sanskrit, Gurucharan College, for invocation and creation of ambience to further our cause in noble direction. We are thankful to respected Vice Principal Sir Dr. Mihir Ranjan Nath, GC College, Silchar, for his inaugural address, and he encouraged us so nicely that it has given us a boost to go for uh, coverage of this webinar. We are indebted to Professor Sharit Kumar Chaudhuri, Professor and Head Department of Anthropology, Rajiv Gandhi University. Sir, we are indebted to you, he, to you, as because in spite of your busy schedule, you acceded to our proposal, you accepted our proposal, and presented a nice lecture. His lucid presentation on the topic of anthropological research in Arunachal Pradesh um, and researches on some emerging areas and issues is most relevant one and fits with our vision. We shall be failing in our duty if we do not mention the name of Professor A. Manibabu Singho, Professor and Head Department of Anthropology, Manipur University. Sir, we owe a lot and convey our sincerest thanks for, for giving us such an illuminative speech. Sir, you delved so nicely into the development of archaeology and had shown us lucidly how to proceed on with further research in this area. We also convey our sincerest thanks to Professor Gulrukh Begum, Madam, Professor, Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University, Guwahati. Then we are very much thankful to you, Madam. Professor Gulrukh Begum has highlighted through her speech, through her great deliberations, various issues related with consanguinity and its implications. Thank you, Madam. I now like to pay my gratitude to my colleagues and former students, Dr. A.H. Gulenur Islam Barbuia and Professor Mr. Abhideep Sarkar for relentlessly helping us in this webinar. And I also like to give our sincere thanks to Coordinator IQAC, Dr. Rajashree Pal, for giving us an opportunity to continue with this webinar. Now, another facet of our webinar remains unfulfilled if I do not mention the name of other workers who are behind curtain. They are working relentlessly to give us boost and to make the event successful one. And as you know, no event can happen without the provision of vast network of people. So behind the curtain, who were with us, the name of you, I can say, we sincerely, we owe a great debt of gratitude and convey our thanks to Dr. Devashish Sharma from Department of Mathematics, Dr. Soumitranath from Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Nirupam Malakar from Department of Botany, Dr. Keshav Luitel, Department of Sanskrit. We also like to thank all the participants from various corners of the country who lend their patient hearing and make the webinar success. Thank you all again. Thank you.
Thanking you, sir. Now the program is wind up, and thanks to all.
Can we leave now?